Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? This time we're cracking open To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
A classic.
It really is. But we're kind of ditching the courtroom drama this time.
Really?
Yeah, we're going beyond the trial and getting into the good stuff, the atmosphere,
Yeah.
the rumors, the way Lee builds Macon almost through the back door.
Interesting.
Like, instead of just telling us the story straight up, we get these excerpts, these little glimpses into people's lives, and it's up to us to put the pieces together.
I see.
It's like we're peeking through the cracks,
Yeah.
getting these fragmented impressions of Macomb and its inhabitants. Like take Boo Radley, for example. He's practically a legend in this town, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's heard of Boo Radley.
But what do we actually know about him from these excerpts? We see him through Scout's eyes, this mix of fear and fascination, and Jem's tall tales don't help much either.
Right. It's all whispers and shadows with Boo. Like he represents something more than just a man. He embodies the fear of the unknown, the way our imaginations can run wild when we don't have all the facts.
And that's what makes it so interesting to me. We're seeing how these perceptions get formed, how much of it is based on hearsay and assumptions, and how that shapes the way we see the world around us, especially as kids, which Scout is, of course.
Exactly, and that's where Lee's use of a child narrator is so brilliant, right? Because Scout's perspective is innocent, but it's also filtered through the biases of her community, her family, and everyone around her. So we're seeing Macomb through her eyes, but we're also seeing how those eyes are being shaped by the place itself.
And Macomb is practically a character in itself in these excerpts. You know what I mean? But it's not just the idyllic southern town you might expect from the surface.
Not at all.
Lee gets into those little details, that oppressive heat, the way time seems to move so slow, the almost stifling social codes. It's like those things become metaphors for something deeper.
It's that Southern Gothic atmosphere, right? It's almost like the Spanish moss and the sweltering heat become characters themselves. Like they're symbols of these unspoken tensions, the weight of history, and the prejudices that permeate every aspect of life in Macomb.
Yes. It's like the landscape itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to break.
Exactly. It's that feeling of anticipation, of something simmering beneath the surface that makes these excerpts so captivating, even though, or maybe because, we're only getting these fragmented glimpses.
And you know what gets me? It's like you can practically feel those characters pushing against that atmosphere, that weight of expectation that hangs over Macomb. Like they're trying to find cracks in the facade.
Oh, absolutely. They're all trying to find their own ways to breathe in that environment.
Exactly. Like Miss Maudie, right? With her garden. She's a devout Baptist, yeah. But she's got that mischievous streak, a little rebellious even. Remember that line of hers?
How about the foot washing Baptist?
Yeah. If they're right, she says, then I'll be burning in hell along with my flowers. Gets me every time.
Such a classic Maudie moment. I love how Lee gives us these little glimpses of defiance. It's like her garden is this act of rebellion, this tiny pocket of beauty and freedom in the midst of all that stifling conformity.
Yeah, it's like she's creating her own little world within that world, right?
Yeah.
A place where she can just be herself.
Exactly. And then you've got someone like Mr. Cunningham. At first, he seems like this menacing figure, part of that mob mentality.
Oh, totally. Remember that scene at the jailhouse? Intense.
So intense. But then Scout starts talking to him, reminds him about his son, and you can practically feel the tension lifting.
It's amazing how Lee does that, right? Injects these moments of grace, these reminders that even in the darkest situations, human connection can still break through.
It's that glimmer of hope, right? That even in a place as steeped in prejudice as Macomb, empathy still has the power to change hearts and minds.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if more people in Macomb had tried to see Mr. Cunningham as a person instead of just part of a mob.
That's what makes that scene so powerful, right? It challenges us to think about our own biases, the ways we might get caught up in groupthink, and the importance of choosing compassion over fear.
For sure. And it's not just Mr. Cunningham either. Think about Boo Radley. He's practically the embodiment of Macomb's fear and suspicion, and yet...
And yet, he turns out to be the one who saves Jem and Scout.
Exactly. It's like Lee takes this character who everyone has written off as a monster and reveals this incredible capacity for good, for protection, for love even. And it makes you realize how often we judge people based on appearances or rumors without ever really knowing the truth.
Right, it's that classic don't judge a book by its cover message, but Lee takes it to a whole other level. She makes us confront our own prejudices head on.
Exactly. And she's reminding us that things aren't always what they seem. Sometimes the people we fear the most are the ones who end up being our protectors, you know? But that's what makes these excerpts so thought-provoking, It's like Lee gives us these glimpses, these hints about what's really going on, but she doesn't spell everything out for us. She leaves these gaps, these questions that linger long after you finish reading.
Absolutely. She doesn't shy away from the ambiguity, the complexity of it all. Like, we see how Maycomb reacts to the alleged incident between Tom and Mayella, but
Yeah, we get those different perspectives, those conflicting stories.
but we never get the full objective truth of what happened that night. It's like Lee is inviting us to wrestle with those different viewpoints, to confront the limitations of our own understanding.
It's true. And it makes you think about all the things we don't know about these characters.
Yeah.
Like Boo Radley, we see him through other people's eyes, but
We never really get inside his head.
exactly. What's his experience of Maycomb? How does he see all this unfolding? Lee doesn't give us those answers, and that's okay.
It's more than okay. It's what makes it so powerful. It forces us to sit with the unknown, to acknowledge that there are always multiple sides to every story. Even someone like Mayella Ewell, who's clearly a victim in many ways.
Right. But she's also complicit in this terrible injustice. It's messy and it's complicated, and Lee doesn't let us off the hook easy.
Not at all. And that's what makes the stories so timeless, so relevant even today, because we're still grappling with these same issues: prejudice, injustice, the courage it takes to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
It's true, even though it's set in this very specific time and place. Those themes resonate so strongly.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that To Kill a Mockingbird isn't just a story. It's like this mirror reflecting back our own biases, our own struggles.
A mirror and maybe a call to action. To be more aware, more empathetic, more willing to challenge our own assumptions and the assumptions of our communities. Just like Atticus tells Scout, you have to climb into someone else's skin and walk around in it for a while. Really try to understand their perspective, even if it's different from your own. That's how we bridge those divides, how we build a more just and compassionate world.
Such a powerful message. And it's something that stays with you long after you finish the book. So I think the next time you're thinking about To Kill a Mockingbird, don't just think about the trial or the characters. Think about the silences, the things that are left unsaid. Think about the perspectives we don't get to see and how that shapes our understanding of the story. It's in those gaps, those unanswered questions, that the real magic happens.
Beautifully said. And maybe, just maybe, it'll inspire us to look for those gaps, those unheard voices in our own lives and communities, because there are always more stories to be told, more perspectives to be heard.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about, right? Getting us to think differently, to look deeper, to engage with these complex themes that continue to shape our world. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations going.